I'm walking through a strange forest, and I don't understand why it pulls me in so much. There seems to be something special that draws me deeper and deeper. Every step feels like a step into the unknown, as if I am heading into an ancient realm of forgotten secrets. The further I go, the thicker the crowns of the trees become, the more humid and pungent the air feels, which my nostrils nervously inhale. Everything around seems ominous and peculiar. Every rustle makes me listen more attentively. Every crunch of dry leaves in the wind makes me flinch. The further I go, the more I notice strange details that seem out of place and dangerous. Twisted branches folded into odd shapes, and strange symbols carved on trees here and there. I feel a chill running through my veins, and goosebumps crawling on my skin. Something sinister lurks in this forest. I continue to walk despite the fear. But this feeling, this strange feeling, as if someone is watching me from behind every tree trunk, this feeling does not let me rest. But I keep moving forward, regardless of anything. The sun slowly sets somewhere in the distance. The dark, viscous night descends upon the forest, as if enveloping it, turning everything around into a primordial, eternal darkness of existence. It feels like I have been walking for hours on end, yet the fatigue I feel is not physical. It is something on an instinctual level that whispers to me that I am losing my energy, as if this forest is slowly, drop by drop, sapping my soul from within me. But in the distance, a clearing appeared, illuminated by the last rays of the sun. It seems like a safe patch of land in this vast expanse. With all my strength, I quicken my pace, hoping for some rest after a long journey, when suddenly I hear crying. Yes, it's not my imagination. It's a child's cry. My heart first leaps with joy, but then immediately sinks. Where could a child be in this dark, gloomy forest? I stand at the edge of a clearing, stunned by the sounds of a child's crying that disrupt the minute tranquility of the forest. My mind starts racing, trying to make sense of how the child could have ended up in such a place. Perhaps someone brought them here and left them. But why? Who could have done this, and why abandon an infant to the mercy of fate in this eerie forest? Maybe it was a desperate decision by a desperate mother who saw no other way out. Or it was a sinister gesture from a deranged individual who wanted to exploit the child for their dark intentions. Each theory seems scarier than the last, leaving me trembling and with a sense of impending disaster. Freed from captivating thoughts, I decide to move towards the sound. My attention is now fully focused on what is happening around me. Progressing through the glade, I instinctively try to move as quietly as possible. My eyes have adjusted to the semi-darkness, and after a while, I notice something strange in the middle of the clearing. At first, it appears to be a normal elevation to me, but as I get closer, I realize that I am standing in front of an old well. It's strange, but I didn't notice it at first when I entered the clearing. It seemed as if it suddenly appeared out of nowhere, as if it grew straight from the ground in a matter of seconds. This frightening sight makes me freeze for a moment, and I stand before this overwhelming discovery, trying to get used to the idea of its existence. Gathering my courage, I cautiously approach the well. Another whimper and a faint cry of a child can be heard from inside. Oh no. Horrified by the realization that this distressing sound is coming from here, I rush to the edge of the well. I feel my head spinning, my legs barely keeping me upright, and my shirt soaked with sweat. My heart is pounding wildly inside my chest as I lean over to take a look inside. I feel it, a dense, penetrating stench emanating from the depths of the well. Yuck! It's not just an odor, it's the stench of decay and decomposition, intensified by centuries of accumulation. Along with it rises a thick fog, as if personifying this air saturated with foulness and horror. In the next second, I felt something cold touch my leg and squeeze my skin. It was as if little icy fingers had dug into me with their nails. It was a child's small hand. Horror pierced through my body. I darted back towards the forest and ran as fast as I could. Away, away, away. Only glancing back for a moment, I saw the silhouette of a little girl standing by the well. And in that same second, I woke up. I'd been wandering through the hypermarket for several hours, searching for the item I needed. I persisted in my search, scanning the shelves, going through the products, trying to find exactly what I was looking for. My eyes grew tired from viewing the vast assortment, but I didn't give up and continued my quest. Fluorescent lamps flickered and dimmed, creating eerie shadows as I walked along one aisle after another. Each pass through the store brought new hope that the next shelf or counter might hold exactly what I sought. At some point, I realized that I was driven by an obsessive idea, as I didn't even know what I was trying to find. As soon as this thought crossed my mind, I immediately noticed a peculiar detail. This enormous store was utterly empty, not a living soul in sight. The shelves were covered with dusty goods, as if no one had ever touched them. Strangely, I hadn't paid attention to this before. Everything I saw seemed perfectly normal and ordinary. It was then that I started noticing strange things, tiny remnants of destruction around me. Broken glass on the floor, torn packaging, scattered randomly in corners. A disturbing feeling rose within me. No matter where I looked, dark red symbols were drawn on the shelves and walls. For some reason, they seemed familiar to me, but the feeling was too vague, and I couldn't grasp their meaning. Around other items displayed in showcases, small piles of ashes lay in circles, with the same symbols scratched above them. But that wasn't all. I also noticed mysterious spots on the walls and floor, some dark purple liquid which seemed almost alive, slowly moving across the tiles. This strange phenomenon evoked mixed feelings of fear, curiosity, and disgust in me. What is this? What is happening? Where am I? I felt a pain in my temples and a slight dizziness. A vivid association formed in my imagination. This mysterious liquid on the floor was trying to penetrate me, my thoughts and feelings. I quickly shook my head, trying to get rid of this sensation. Suddenly, an overwhelming need to get out of there as soon as possible engulfed me. A sticky feeling of panic surrounded me. Continuing my path, I changed aisle after aisle, trying not to pay attention to the increasingly frequent bouts of dizziness. Occasionally, I stopped, trying to orient myself, but all in vain. After exploring all possible paths and turns, I realized with horror that I was walking in circles. This store resembled a labyrinth with no way out. A sense of desperation and helplessness overwhelmed me. And then I heard her voice again. At first, it seemed like my mind was playing tricks on me. I heard a whisper coming from somewhere nearby, but soon it grew louder and clearer until a terrible sound echoed through the store. Laughter. Childish laughter. It sounded so far away and yet so close. The sound sent shivers down my spine. The lights in the store began to flicker even more intensely, with each flash piercing the space like lightning in the dark sky. It felt like an omen of something dreadful. I looked around and saw the shelves shaking, as if during an earthquake. Products began tumbling down like an avalanche, smashing on the floor, filling the air with the sound of broken glass and metal. I turned to run, but suddenly something strange happened. The shelves and aisles that had surrounded me disappeared, and I found myself in some kind of basement. Perhaps it was the basement beneath the store itself. The lighting here was completely different, yellow and dim. Suddenly, the weak lighting in the basement went out. Silence and darkness enveloped the room. I stood still, trying to adjust to the darkness and calm my pounding heart. And then I heard a sound, footsteps. Small, light steps approaching me. At that moment, the lamps lit up again, and I saw her, a little girl in an old-fashioned dress, holding a doll in her hands. She stood there, smiling widely, but there was nothing childish in her eyes, only infinite emptiness. The girl reached out her hand towards me and uttered 2 words. "Welcome home." My world turned black. It was a dark and stormy night. The rain was pouring heavily. It seemed like it had been raining for days, and my mood matched its gloominess. I felt lost, not just geographically, but emotionally and mentally. My mind was clouded with an unexplainable uneasiness. As usual, in the evening I went for a walk around the neighborhood with my dog. He is my best and most loyal friend. We adopted him from a shelter with my parents when he was just a puppy, and since then, he became an irreplaceable part of our family. Somehow I noticed that my dog was gone. I looked around, but he was nowhere to be seen. I called his name, again and again. "Hey buddy, come to me. Noah, Noah." Silence. "Buddy, where are you? Come here quickly." It was strange and unlike him. He was always by my side, always obedient, and never strayed far away. I couldn't imagine where he could have gone. It was already dark and the streetlights were on, but I still couldn't find him. I wandered through the wet streets, desperately trying to find him. Of course, he would be found soon. He had to be found. But time passed, and he was still not in sight, and doubt started creeping into my mind. The more time I spent wandering through these streets, the more anxious I became. As I passed through the city, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off here. Everything looked strange and distorted. When my eyes quickly scanned the surroundings, everything seemed neat and right. But as soon as I stopped and stared at a particular area for a while, the image started trembling, and strange inconsistencies appeared. It was as if every shadow concealed something indescribably wrong. Every crack in the asphalt was only a description of that crack with rough mistakes. The walls of the houses were covered with graffiti, and as I looked at them, I saw distorted faces full of pain and agony. All these details created the sensation that I was not in my own city, but in some kind of inverted mirror reflection of a familiar place. Despite feeling disoriented, I was determined. I had to find my dog. But while I aimlessly roamed the city with each turn and alley, new questions arose in my head. Who were these people looking at me from their windows? Why did they pull their curtains shut as soon as I noticed them? I couldn't see their faces. I continued walking, becoming more and more entangled with each step. Like on autopilot, I reached the outskirts of the city, where suddenly I stumbled upon an old black church, illuminated by flashes of lightning. The building appeared before me almost out of thin air, as if from another world. Tall, stained glass windows reflected the darkness. There was no sign of life inside or beyond its walls. Another flash of lightning made the sky crackle like shattered glass, and for a moment, it illuminated the porch of the old church. At that moment, I noticed something unexpected. A small cardboard box placed neatly right at the entrance. The box was wet from the rain, and its edges were already starting to dissolve, as if they were trying to erase themselves from this world. Suddenly, an unexpected sound echoed. Faint cries and soft children sobbing. I cautiously stepped forward and reached out to open the lid of the box. I was shocked by what I saw. Inside the box, among torn and rain-soaked blankets, lay a little baby. The poor creature whimpered and cried, trying with all its strength to draw attention. At the same moment, an ear-piercing toll of bells filled the air. The sound was so intense that I recoiled for a second, while the baby in the box cried even louder. Shadows rushed past me. Dark silhouettes began pushing me away from the box, muttering something aggressively and incomprehensible. I gasped when I realized they were nuns in black robes. A sudden lightning flash illuminated their faces, making them even more frightening. I could see that their eyes were completely white, without pupils or irises. One shock was replaced by another. Suddenly I realized that all my clothes were soaked in a viscous crimson liquid. In shock, I looked at my hands. Raindrops that had just hit me transformed into drops of blood, leaving red traces on my palms and fingers. Silently screaming, I turned my gaze back to the church. Its doors closed with a thunderous echo, and the nuns carried the box with the baby into their dark lair. Now I know where the story of that little girl began. I know for sure that she is a victim. But what happened within the walls of that church remains a mystery.